Welcome into a special Friday edition of KC Sports Tonight, the streaming edition. Jared Koller back here. Scott Reese, Marlia Campbell, Neil Jones, all on vacation today, so we bring in the big guns, all right? Mark Poulose, my man, one of my favorite people here at KC5, hardest working man in the biz. I will follow him into battle anywhere, and that includes a KC Sports Tonight stream. Mark, first off, tell the people where you are. You're joining us now live from a place that's, well, kind of known for sports.
Yeah, Jared, we're actually coming to you from the parking lot of the Truman Sports Complex in between Arrowhead and Kaufman for Q-Fest. There's a whole bunch of pit masters out here. I think there's about 8, 9 or so that are going to grill up are smoking up a whole bunch of stuff for all sorts of people to hear. But Jared, I got to talk about being on this show. I know you've had some illustrious guests. You've had Super Bowl champions like Justin Reed. You've had NCAA basketball champions. And today you have somebody from the news department. And I'm glad that we can join you here on KC Sports Tonight.
Not just that, we have all-star photographer Kimo Hood running the operation behind the scenes. This is pretty much the most illustrious trio this stream has ever seen, so I'm fired up. We hope Kansas City's having a great Friday as well. Basically what we're going to do today, Mark and I both from Kansas City, as you see on your screen. Mark, a Bishop Miege alum, I'm a Staley alum, and so you know what, we know this city pretty well. We both grew up loving sports, both still love sports, and so hey, we're going to talk about what we've seen from our local teams through the years. And Mark, that starts with the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? What do you remember, what stands out to you about the Kansas City Chiefs pre-Andy Reid? Going to games, watching on TV, what are your top takeaways from growing up a Chiefs fan before this glory hit the city?
Jared, that's a little bit of a loaded question because I feel like I want to remember this fondly, but when I sit here and I start to think about the records and those seasons, very, very few of them were good. I do remember 2003, a very magical year here in Kansas City. The Royals were very solid that year, making a push to the playoffs, and the Chiefs 13-3. I think that was the game where then the Colts came in here. Peyton Manning didn't punt one time. So memories before Andy Reid, not necessarily always the best. I remember Brody Croyle coming in relief of Damon Heward. I remember reading some articles in the newspaper like, what's different about Brody Croyle? And I think Tony Gonzalez was like, well, he throws the ball a lot harder. So, I mean, obviously not a lot of success, a lot of quarterback carousel. How can we forget Priest Holmes, though? Didn't he set the NFL touchdown single season record? We had Larry Johnson. So there were some good memories for sure. Dante Hall, the X Factor. How could I forget? But
Human
Jared,
joystick,
when we were kids, not always the best.
Yeah, that's where I think it's interesting because there were a lot of strong players to identify with. They just lacked the big moments in the big games, right? You remember that 2003 team that started 10-0. They finished 13-3. They're hosting the Colts at the playoff game. The offense puts up big numbers, yet the defense doesn't force a single punt, and the Chiefs find a way to lose. And it's stuff like that. They make the playoffs in 2010 with Jamal Charles, Matt Castle. They won the division, Dwayne Bowe. But again, they didn't perform on the biggest stage, and I think that's why it's such a culture shock that now, well, yeah, you've still got some identifiable players that the city loves, but they are performing on the biggest stage. And of course, that starts with Andy Reid coming to town. What do you remember about the Alex Smith era? I remember that it instantaneously changed the culture. Like, we had the Romeo Crennel experience for a year coming out of the Todd Haley year where there was just a lot of weird times, and immediately when Andy Reid came to town, it was like, okay, this is how a professional football team would run. And the playoff success wasn't there early on, right? They lost to the Colts, then they didn't make the playoffs in the second year, but it was still a return to stability for these Chiefs.
No, absolutely, and I think maybe to make a little bit of a cross-sport comparison, especially to the Royals here, when maybe Alex Smith came, it was kind of like maybe when the Royals got James Shields. It was kind of like this team, we're trying to do something for real now. Maybe we're not. We have goals, we have aspirations, but maybe our past wasn't what we wanted. But now we have a guy that's a professional, that's a starter that can come in, and this guy's going to do the job. This guy's going to win some games. Maybe is this guy going to be the best quarterback in the NFL? No, but is he going to be the worst quarterback in the NFL? Not even close. So when Alex Smith really came in, for me, it was a turning point for this organization. Also, because you got to see Andy Reid with a quarterback again for the first time in a while. Because I know when he was in Philadelphia, he was having obviously started with Donovan McNabb, but they were kind of in a run there where he wasn't really having great quarterbacks, but they were still getting some wins. But with Alex Smith and Andy Reid, I was like, now we have a duo here that is capable of winning NFL games. And it had been a long time since I had really felt like that here in Kansas City as a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, it's interesting because Alex Smith won this team's first playoff game in 20 years, right? Joe Montana was the last quarterback to win it in 94, and I think that gets lost because they didn't have the playoff success, but they had at least more playoff success than all the teams before them. And as you said, it laid the culture, and so many guys were a part of that era that didn't end up getting Super Bowl rings that I do think are credited for helping build the Andy Reid culture. I'm talking Jamal Charles, Derek Johnson, Tamba Hali, Eric Berry. Those are the ones that really stand out to me that I think went through some bad years, went through some heartbreak. And listen, the Chiefs' heartbreak goes back to the 90s, 2000s, but even under Andy Reid, they led the Colts 38-10 in the second half and lost. Marcus Mariota caught his own touchdown pass in Alex Smith's final game. The Steelers won a game despite not scoring a touchdown in the playoffs. And so I feel bad for some of those players that didn't get the Super Bowl ring, but it also makes now this new Chiefs era of dominance that much sweeter because of what Chiefs fans went through, Mark.
Yeah, Jared, I think that's actually something when you and I were at the Chiefs ring ceremony last week when you spoke with Chase Daniel, he brought up Alex Smith. He brought up that era of Chiefs football and how that was instrumental, how we needed that time to get to this time. So obviously, Alex Smith, I mean, we really got to give that guy his flowers here in Kansas City for not only changing the culture, but then setting the foundation for everything that we have now become the beneficiaries of.
Yeah, and helped credit for training Patrick Mahomes in that first year. Remember, Patrick Mahomes, did not start all, but he started one game as a rookie, and Alex Smith was a big part of mentoring that so that he was able to succeed and throw 50 touchdowns his second year. So ending on the Chiefs, Mark, what do you make of this current dynasty? As a Kansas City kid yourself that went through these lean years, now that the Chiefs are on top of the world, what do you make of life with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce here?
A week ago I might have answered this question a little bit differently. I would have thought maybe, after 2 titles, maybe they're going to rest on their laurels. Maybe this, 2 titles in a row is a lot. But then when we were at the ring ceremony, I can't get this image out of my head. We were talking to Steve Spagnuolo, and we're like, what's the difference? What do you see about this group? And he goes, this group is focused on what's next. And that's just something that's shocking to hear for an organization that back-to-back years, top of the mountain 3 times in the last 5 years, Super Bowl champion. Their defensive coordinator was still saying this group is young enough and they're hungry enough that they're still looking forward. So to kind of answer your question there, I think there's still actually more from this group. I think that chance to chase history, the chance to win 3 in a row is something that's really motivating for them, whereas maybe if you thought a team that won 2 in a row, maybe they would rest on their laurels, but I think that chance at history is really going to motivate this group.
Yeah, they said it even on the stage after they won the Super Bowl. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes is like, hey, nobody's ever gotten 3. I think that is definitely something that's pretty motivating. It's funny you bring up the ring ceremony. Mark and I have been at the last 2 Super Bowl ring ceremonies now, and he mentioned that Steve Spagnuolo interview. Mark, what struck me about that is one of my questions. I was like, hey, Spags, you're a really popular guy here. His T-shirts that say "In Spags We Trust," those sold out instantly. He led one of the best defenses in recent NFL history this past year. The Chiefs were carried by their defense for most of the season. And so I kind of want to give him his flowers a little bit, say, hey, what's it mean to be loved by this town? Do you feel appreciated? And he didn't want to go there at all. He's like, listen, I know that can quickly change. I'm loved now, but we got to keep going. And that's such a unique mindset that I think is what makes coaches great, because Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, that whole coaching staff, they keep grinding away. They don't settle with, all right, we got 1 championship. They are constantly looking ahead until their career is over, and I admire that. I feel a little bad that they can't, maybe relish the moment a little bit more, but and Spagnuolo isn't the only coach to say something like that to me. Dave Toub had a similar mindset, saying, yeah, we're only on top of the mountain right now. We got to work hard to stay there. But I think that's something that Kansas City can be proud of, Mark.
Yeah, and I got to say one more time, I mean, you were telling Spags multiple times how much he is loved by the city. He's like, no, right now. That guy did not want to take his flowers at all. But I will say, I think the most important part of that whole interaction was when you were talking to his wife about the meatball recipe that Chris Jones likes so much. Yeah,
yes, exactly, the meatballs. But good symmetry in the marriage, because I asked Mrs. Spagnuolo what Steve's favorite dish was, and he's like, and she said, he likes everything. He doesn't even have a favorite dish. So I asked Steve, separately, what's your favorite dish? He's like, I like everything. So listen, happy house, happy Chiefs facility, happy coach. Credit the entire Steve Spagnuolo family. No, it's a great time to be here in Kansas City, Mark. And can you feel the energy? Because you grew up here, but then you went away for a little bit, obviously in college, and you worked elsewhere. And then now that you're back, what's it like being around town and feeling the Chiefs' optimism, the Chiefs' unity that has currently taken over Chiefs Kingdom?
Jared, there's actually a really interesting question that I've thought a lot about being from here and then being away and coming back. And I really felt like when I come here, Kansas City, in many ways, was growing as a city. It was really coming into its own, maybe on the national stage. And then sports, especially with the Royals starting in 2014-15, and then with the run that the Chiefs have been on, it really thrust Kansas City into the national limelight in a way I had never seen in my entire life. And it was sports that brought us there. And then when I came back, I really, with the Chiefs and their success, I really became to realize like a lot of our identity here in Kansas City is tied into our teams, into their success. Originally growing up, we had a lot of success at the college level. You'd see a lot of KU, MU, K-State, all that kind of stuff everywhere. But now, I feel like a lot of that has been replaced by a lot of Chiefs, and even this year with the success of the Royals and Bobby Witt and obviously Sal Perez and the future Hall of Famer that he potentially could be, is you're seeing a lot of community pride based in these teams. One more thing I'd say on this is when I was out of town, I'd often say at the airport, you could always see the Kansas City gate because everyone there was in Chiefs or Royals gear. So very much so, Kansas City has changed from these teams because we really adopted them as our identity, I would say.
Yeah, sports are a real source of pride here in Kansas City, and that's not a surprise when teams are winning. We've thrown 4 parades in the last decade, and it's definitely a cool time to be here in Kansas City and be from Kansas City. You mentioned the Royals and Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez. They are having a winning season right now, a return to form, one of the more impressive turnarounds to this point after last season. But Mark, let's go back to before the Dayton Moore era. What do you remember about the Kansas City Royals growing up here in KC? Neither of us were around for the 80s for the Royals Renaissance that George Brett helped spearhead. But so we didn't see much winning baseball, and I think in many ways that also made that 2014 and 15 season more magical, Mark.
No, it definitely did. I was trying to think of maybe some highlights from. It's kind of like the Chiefs. I hate to say, it wasn't always the best when we grew up, but I do remember the 2003, the We Believe season. Jose Lima. I mean, there were some bright spots back there. The shortstop, Angel Baroa, seeing him.
Rookie of the year.
Up the middle, and
wow.
There are some real guys. Desi Relaford, I know. Jimmy Gobble. There were some guys, but it really. I want to say maybe actually the real turning point for at least for me, maybe that team was maybe the All-Star game. I remember Billy Butler, our lone All-Star. I remember just watching that game on TV. I had chilled up my spine because we weren't the best team at the time, but just the hearing everyone going Billy Butler, and it was just it was truly unbelievable before the World Series run.
No, and I think that All-Star game is somewhat forgotten here in Kansas City lore. They booed Robinson Cano because he said he was going to pick Billy Butler for the home run derby, and then he did not pick Country Breakfast for the home run derby. But no, that was a cool scene, and I was at the game, and I remember thinking, this is the most Kansas City's been on the world stage probably in my entire life. That at that point, everyone was watching that game, and the game kind of was a dud, but just to put Kansas City on the map in that way, it's kind of forgotten because then in 14-15, you're in it with the World Series and then again with the Chiefs in 19, 20, 21, and so forth. But, yeah, 2012 All-Star game was good. That 2003 team led by Tony Pena, that was at least a winning team. Yeah, it's and the fact that you've mentioned Jimmy Gobble and Desi Relaford on this program is a new high. So, yeah, shout out that team. But it's interesting because the Chiefs had a lot of heartbreak before Mahomes. The Royals didn't have a whole lot of heartbreak, honestly, before they went to the play because they never even made the playoffs. They were kind of just more irrelevant. And that's why it was so shocking and so interesting that when they did finally make the playoffs in 2014, they just went all the way to Game 7 of the World Series, swept their way to the series. And what do you remember, Mark, about those two runs? Because what stands out to me is that it was every single night. There was so much excitement, joy in the city. It's all anyone could talk about. And the team delivered night in and night out for the most part.
I guess what really stands out to me about those 2 runs is how we, as Kansas City, really saw that team start from the bottom and become what they became. I think it might have started with drafting of Mike Moustakas and Eric Hosmer the next year, and then as that team kind of graduated through the minor leagues, I believe they were called one of the best farm systems in the history of baseball, with the group of guys that kind of came up, and then you really saw that team kind of keep knocking at that door. But when they finally broke through in 2015, I think actually we were talking about this a couple months ago in the newsroom, was that I remember after they lost to the Giants, they showed up to spring training the next year. I think they had a T-shirt, something to the effect that was like World Series or bust. Like, I just remember that when they went back that year and they beat the Mets, like, in spring training that year, I felt the team, they were focused. That was a team that was determined to go the distance that it just lost in the most brutal way possible. So I guess one thing that really stood out to me, Jared, was the determination of that 2015 team to wash away the pain of 2014 and then climb the mountain and win the title.
Yeah, it was a special team because they had done a lot of losing together right there for a couple years, but they'd also done a lot of winning in the minor leagues, and the fact that they collectively came together as a unit without a real star. This, like, right now, if the Royals, make a playoff run, it'll be largely a part of, like, Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez, who are playing at all-star levels right now. The Royals didn't really have – Eric Hosmer was really strong. He was an all-star game MVP, but I don't know if he was one of the league's top stars. Mike Moustakas eventually was good, but he got sent down in the summer of 2014. People forget that.
Got sent down.
He got pinch hit for in the wild card game, and then he went on to set the Royals' franchise record for most postseason home runs in 14, later set the single-season home run record. Salvador Perez was a young catcher at that time. He didn't have the power they did, and Lorenzo Cain was good, but not a star. And so the fact that they came together, and you mentioned James Shields at the top of the show, he really flipped that switch in changing the culture in a team that had talent. And then James Shields came in here and was like, no, the expectation is to win, and we can win. Wade Davis, of course, then going back to the bullpen. I think of that HDH bullpen, which is statistically arguably the best back into the bullpen in Major League Baseball history. That 14 team just didn't strike out. They didn't hit home runs either, yet they still won. So, Mark, ending on the 14 and 15, when you think of those 2 runs, what are your favorite moments? Who are your favorite players that really stand out at the top of your mind?
Boy, favorite moment, I guess you got to say Christian Colon coming around the bases.
Oh, okay.
No. I have a clear favorite. It's 2014. It's Billy Butler when he stole second base and revved that engine. I don't know if I've ever reacted to baseball that way, but that was truly one of the best sporting moments of my life.
That was great. The Christian Colon scoring the game-winning run in the wild card game and then having the game-winning RBI in 2015, huge. But Billy Butler saying that's what speed do is also great. All right, we've got some music blasting. So we will start wrapping things up here. Mark Poulose, a Kansas City native, doing great work here at KCDV5. Of course, Mark, we also have some awesome local college football and basketball teams here. Kansas winning a couple national titles in our lifetime. Mizzou winning a couple Cotton Bowls in our lifetime. Kansas State winning a couple Big 12 championships in our lifetime, also making a run to the Elite Eight just a couple years ago. And, of course, it's also the soccer capital of America, Sporting winning an MLS Cup in 2013, and now the historic Kansas City Current Stadium. Such sources of pride here in Kansas City, and we've got great high school sports, too. I know your guy, John Holmes, is really killing it every year at Bishop Mage with your alma mater. Great high school football team. So yeah, we are proud Kansas City natives, and you know what? We're proud to be working here at KCDV5 as well. Mark, you can catch him and I both on the weekends. All right, we are the Weekend Warriors, 10 to 11, Saturday, Sunday. You see Mark 10 to 10:30 with great reporting. Then we've got our KC Sports Tonight television show, 10:30 to 11. And so we thank all of you for watching this, for watching us on TV. Mark, now that the music has stopped, I'll end you with your closing thoughts on why you are proud to be a Kansas City native. Why do you love to call Kansas City home?
It's absolutely got to be the people, and it's especially at places like this, Kauffman Stadium, Arrowhead Stadium. I don't know if there's a more magical place in Kansas City than maybe in the Arrowhead parking lot before a game. So being here in this parking lot, I have got to say that it's the people, it's the culture, and it's us. That's why I love Kansas City.
It's a good time to be here in Kansas City, but the people have always been great. I was always very proud to be a Kansas City native, and now the fact that the rest of the world gets to see how awesome Kansas City is, and the rest of the world gets to be jealous of Kansas City, that's pretty cool, because, again, I didn't feel that way growing up. And so now the fact that we've got a Twins fan as our photographer, Kimo Hood, and he's like, those darn Royals, they've had more success than the Twins over the last decade. That's a tough pill to swallow, but that's the reality here, and I'm not going to apologize for it. No, all right, Mark, I appreciate you.
He's living in a world of hurt.
Yeah, and Kimo, I appreciate you as well. Kimo's one of the brighter baseball minds that I've ever talked to. He knows pretty much everything about baseball statistics of the 80s, so I'll give him a shout out as well. All right, Mark, I appreciate you. Yeah, go ahead.
I got one question for you, if I got you. You ready? You ready? Favorite Royal pre-2007?
Oh. See, 'cause my underrated favorite Royal is James Shields, but pre-2007, David DeJesus probably. He signed a birthday card for me one year that like played music. You know, the kind of birthday card that opens up and it plays like a song? He signed that birthday card for my dad, and I always think how weird that must have been for a Major League Baseball player to open a card and it starts singing at you. But yeah, shout out David DeJesus.
Hey,
Mark,
better than baseball. Yeah.
There aren't that many.
He's the man.
There aren't many people that can come on this stream and say the names Angel Baroa, Desi Rurella for Jimmy Gobble, David DeJesus, and just for that fact alone, job well done. You can see Mark coming up here at 6 o'clock on the news. I'll also be 6 o'clock news. And speaking of former Royals, we'll be talking about some former Royals coming up here on 620. So, Mark, great job. We appreciate you. Shout out Kimo, and thank you, viewers, for watching. James Shields, salute.